Welcome to the Mental Health Raw and Open podcast with your host, Jody Betty.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Mental Health Raw and Open podcast. I'm your host, Jody, and today we are joined by a good friend of mine, Smith. Smith, welcome to the podcast, my friend. Thank you so much for your time.
Hey, Jody. Thanks for having me on. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem, man. I know we, just met like not too long ago, but I like what you got to say, and I like your personality, man. I think you got a great personality, so I'm thrilled to, hear a little bit more about you today.
I really appreciate that. Yeah, I heard you had the podcast, and there's some people in the realm who do, but to me, X was always the thing I loved about the spaces since Twitter Spaces. It's been almost 3 years for me being out there, and I love the fact that it was like a push button podcast. It's just that people treat it like it's social audio because that's what it also is, but you can also just record out there. I get it though, right? There's a whole industry behind this stuff, and I don't know. People always ask me if I have a podcast, and I just say, yeah, I do. Just follow me on X, right?
Yeah,
but not everyone feels that way, and I get it though. Like, you can make a living off this stuff, and there's a lot of people. We thought audio would go away, right? But no, it seems to be back with a vengeance, and I love it. Right?
Yeah, absolutely, man. I know, like most people that I've done my podcast with, they'll either have camera on or off. But
Mm-hmm.
I know so many people who are not comfortable,
Mm-hmm.
including myself. I'm a photographer, so I'm
Mm-hmm.
behind the camera, not in front of it.
Sure.
Right? But I do want to
Mm-hmm.
step out of my comfort zone and start doing like little small
Yeah.
videos to start with.
Yeah. I'm fine with video, but the thing is, it's just, I don't know. For me, I pace, and that's one of the things that's great about this is with social audio or no video. In the world of overexposure, you have it where everyone is, and then COVID with Zoom, and everyone's at work now on camera and showing up. There's such a thing as showing up on camera that people understand more fully now in the society, I feel, and.
Hmm.
And a lot of folks are like, they feel like they're at a job when they have to be on social media showing up like that on camera. It's a nice that we can have the feature, but it's also nice to be able to, be in your underwear, relaxing at home or whatever, and just take part in a conversation or listen in like as a form of radio. So,
Right, absolutely. Like I said to you, oh, okay, no cameras. I don't have to do my hair. We're all good.
yeah. Also, I'm a pacer. I pace. So it's like,
So you're
makes me
walking
look
and
like a
talking.
madman. Yeah. I just wear a headset and I walk and talk. It's the thing I transitioned into. I was always into the physical stuff. I grew up skateboarding. I was in the Air Force. I'm into physical activity, or at least I was a lot more before my Air Force service, and so that's a whole story. But yeah, it's a very interesting time to be asked to do this because I'm taking a sonography class right now, I'm finishing my degree, I guess. I don't know. For years, I have a 2-year in aviation management, but I've been to all these different universities studying different things, and I don't know. I would either leave to do a project, or else, I don't know, I just would get bored because they'd often say something like when I did the Flint project. I'm originally from Flint, Michigan, but after the Air Force, I went back to Maharishi University. Because that's the story I'm trying to tell through this character, okay, this whole story. And it's hard because I took the class specifically because I want to work with this guy, Paul, who's a great sonographer. We're in literally his last class teaching sonography at Concordia. So then we just found out today he had a death in the family, someone really close to him. It's... pretty heavy stuff, and so we've had a little misstep in the class. But one thing I found was I was the only one in the class who was who was developing their character in terms of like where they are in the scene and the music and the imagine the weather, and we do a drawing of it, all this, an illustration, all this kind of stuff, and a collage, and put together the story of the character. And it's great to be in a room full of people who have, like, you can ask them any question about this and they know the answer. The problem for me is I've been trying to become that character. And so, for example, my clothing, I created a goal so I could do this. Part of it is that everything that I wear or own has to be useful. It's a tiny house concept, and it's also a concept I helped develop as a protocol for, well, going to do the library show, right?
Right, right.
And yeah, that's how I became a clown accidentally, because the first act of the play is a clown. And then the second is Jimmy Leaf Tender. That's my name on X, right?
Right, right.
And the third one is what I originally called the Blue Wizard, but which has become Purple Smith, the wizard, right? So
Okay.
so that's the idea, because I realized after seeing Honduras, that's kind of how I define my life as before and after Honduras, because seeing that place when I did in the Air Force when I was stationed there really changed me, and because I saw poverty in a level that I couldn't comprehend.
Yes,
And
absolutely.
I couldn't comprehend that there are so many people who don't have enough to eat and sanitary conditions and all these other things, while there's so many people who are just stuff, who are wasting a lot of resources, as it turns out, through some of the education I was able to get to learn about these things. We just we might as well flush everything right down the toilet. And often we do, perfectly good, clean water, but that's another story. So I ended up meeting Jacques Fresco. He's in my profile picture on X. That was a picture I never thought that anyone would care about, but now people give me props because I met him. I hung out with him a couple times. And, it's not like other people didn't go there. But I was really kind of obsessed and couldn't sleep at night because I just thought, this is crazy. Am I crazy? Why isn't everyone... why is everyone just acting like this isn't happening?
Yep.
And so I met Fresco, and I'm not crazy, as it turns out. But not everyone can be Jacques Fresco. He's like a genius inventor, designer guy. And so that's why he had a project, the Venus Project, and I met him. I stayed tied with. The first time I went, there was maybe a dozen people there. Everyone asked questions. We see his designs in Venus, Florida, where he had his compound. And he was ancient by then. I met him. He was like 95, 96. They still prop him up on that couch, and he spits fire, boy. I mean, you know what I mean? He's like, oh man. And so he just blows your mind. And he says, when you leave here, you'll be different. And he's right. It changes you in a way that's hard to understand when someone with that much knowledge and power can just talk to you and help you deprogram. I'm looking into worldview right now and learning about Heidegger again, because I'm getting into all this stuff out here through mental health, and then all the realms that exist on the social audio spaces. It's a revolution, okay? I think that this is a piece of the Renaissance that we're always talking about and trying to catalyze that Renaissance, okay? Because people don't realize the power they have. The kids have it in their hand now, but you and I remember, we're still amazed by the power of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
That you can hold the world in the palm of your hands, right? And you can tune in a Google Map and go anywhere you want and get anything you
Man,
want.
remember printing out all that shit from MapQuest 30
Oh my
pages?
God, printing! I don't even want to. Hey, don't even admit that right now, okay? Don't try to tell people about the dinosaur times, okay?
Forever 40. Forever 40.
Oh my gosh, yeah, 100%. So
It's the
yeah,
same
pardon?
when you were talking about traveling. I spent a lot of time in Colombia, in
Okay.
the tourist areas, but also out in
Mhm.
the villages,
Mhm.
and you know it it does change you because
Uh-huh.
you don't know poverty in North America,
Mhm. Mhm.
and still the most generous people. Like this one family that I met, like literally had a loaf of bread for dinner and
Mhm.
offered to cut me a slice of their bread with already a family of six, right?
Oh my goodness.
So for me, also one good thing is once you turn your money into Colombian money in Colombia, you cannot turn it back. So I
Oh.
just, left them with the equivalent of about $200 American,
Uh.
just for the gesture of, that much kindness. Well, in North America, as you said, you would take a bite of something and then throw it in the
Mhm.
garbage and onto something new, right?
For sure, for sure. Yeah, that's so funny. You're in Colombia. I didn't know that. So I was there for the first time ever recently.
Whereabouts?
Um, and Bogota.
Oh, nice, nice.
Yeah. Have you been there?
Yeah, I went to Bogota. I've been to Cartagena and Isla Blanca.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, people told me about Cartagena. Yeah, I didn't have time, but what I was doing was I was going there, um, well, to find out if I was going to use it as a spot for medical tourism because my long-term plan was to, flesh out the Honduras story, but go there and do some other things. However, I think it's a little too far as much, and I do love it there, but I need to try Mexico City because I need to get real, basically find the best massage artists I can find, and have them work on my back because I have chronic pain. I have scoliosis, and
Oh, okay.
yeah, so I was led in the Air Force with a waiver, and I was fit, I was fast, one of the fastest guys in my flight, and I could, like I said, I was always a very physical person. Jumping off rooftops downstairs on a skateboard certainly didn't help, but okay. So yeah, I was into that kind of stuff, and I suppose as a way of traumatizing myself, I now realize. Um, but through that you get this reward, you get this high of landing the trick, and
Yeah,
and
yeah,
and you get the acclaim from your friends, and and people like you, and so you accomplish something in the world.
yeah.
But you do it. Why do you really do it? And most of my best skating that I did was by myself. Um, it was a thing that I did for my own mental health, and it was my art form, and it's a way that I blew off steam. And I didn't do drugs. I didn't smoke or drink or anything, and I didn't drink alcohol until I was almost 23, and not a drop. And I didn't smoke marijuana until I was 27 years old. Other than that, I tried mushrooms, but I've never done any hard drugs. No cocaine, nothing like that. No meth.
Yeah.
Um, you know, but I can tell you, it was different for me back then. That's what got me high. Was doing that, but my body can't take it. And I mean, that's a young man's game right there. Rolling
Yeah,
on the
yeah,
concrete and jumping down. I
yeah.
mean, yeah,
I always it fascinates me when I watch. I'm just like, oh my God, how many times did they miss before they hit that trick?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
And I'm just
yeah.
like, ow, 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 every time. But there's, such a persistence
Mhm, mhm.
in doing it and then getting it done, and that is also like an instant gratification too, right? Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, shoot, like you said, instant. If you even if you're just rolling, yeah, it feels good, right?
yeah,
Um, but
yeah.
but yeah, you also get the payoff, right? If like you
Hmm.
said, you miss a lot of times, you got to work up to it, and the key is getting more concentrated, right? If you miss, you concentrate more, and so you try
Right.
harder. You see,
Yeah.
and the stakes are high. That's what I loved about it. It's like if you mess up, you can really hurt yourself, right? When you're
Yes,
flipping the board through the
absolutely.
air, jumping down something, you can really hurt yourself bad. And I've seen guys hurt themselves real bad, and I've hurt myself. I've certainly hurt myself bad. I broke a hand once. It's always a lame trick though when you do something like that. I was in
Yeah,
Pennsylvania
right.
on a road trip with a buddy in high school. His dad went to these monster conventions. He loved monster, like old monster movies, Frankenstein. There's like a whole
Okay.
community, old school community around that stuff. He collected the figurines, and they go and have stay in the hotel for a weekend in some monster convention. People sell stuff, and they screen films, and there's famous people, whatever. So yeah, we went to this indoor skate park, and I did a frontside board slide, and I just fell the wrong way, and
Yeah.
I just broke my two metacarpals in my right hand. Not a big deal, but plenty of rolled ankles and bruised hips and everything else just from hitting the concrete the wrong way and stuff like that. So, and sprained wrists. Oh my God, the sprained wrists.
Dude, I'm like I like to say 5'3", but I've probably shrunk. Um,
We all do.
but I was like the first female goalie in Ontario in a men's league.
What?
So I played soccer for years since I was 4.
Oh my
And
goodness.
now I'm just like, oh my God, why did nobody tell me that everything was gonna hurt so much?
How'd you end up in Colombia? Like how'd you end up discovering Colombia?
Um, It was just my mom was really sick. She was dying, and
Mm,
we were supposed to go on a vacation, and she couldn't
mhm,
go. So, being like 18, I think I just was like, well, I'll go
mhm,
by myself, right? Like,
mhm,
hey,
mhm,
nothing can happen. You're
mhm,
invincible at 18.
mhm.
And I went down to Cartagena, and I met like the most wonderful people. I made a bunch of friends like away from the
Mhm.
hotel that actually lived in Cartagena, and I met a girl who was teaching English there. So I stayed there for my week's vacation, and then the next year I went back down to see my friends. I stayed with them. We went to like all
Mhm.
the I had already done the touristy shit, so we went to all
Mm.
the like small villages and stuff. And
Okay.
um,
Wow.
the third time I went down, God, did I ever get checked by customs on the way back because it was my third trip to Colombia in 2 years. I'm like,
What's going on, Jody?
right? Like, meanwhile, I wouldn't even like smoke it. My friends are like, let's smoke a joint. I'm like, in here in Colombia, I don't want to dig myself. No, no.
Oh my gosh, yeah, weed of all things. I mean, shoot, they actually have a movement down there where they'll grow. Like I went to some vintage shops, clothing places just for fun when I was there, and they'd have pot plants growing in there. Like there's a law where I don't know how many plants you can grow, but a lot of people would have like one plant in their business
Yeah, yeah,
as a point of protest to say to help the country. You know what I
yeah,
mean? To say we should produce, just grow our own and take the power away.
yeah.
And they had a nice shop. I went in there. They had every product you can imagine. It's a thing where it's legal, but if you smoke at the park or something, the cops are gonna mess with you. So,
Right.
it's just cultural but my
Even in
goodness,
Amsterdam, you can smoke on the
mhm,
street, but if you're
mhm,
like in a big crowd or something, like they're not
yeah,
going to harass you, but they might suggest that,
yeah,
we've provided you a lot of places where you can go
sure,
smoke,
yeah,
right?
exactly. Have you been to Amsterdam?
Yeah, man, loved it. 9 days
Okay.
there. Did more
Oh,
walking than I
cool.
ever walked in my entire life,
Uh-huh.
but just the canals and it's just so
Mm,
cool there. Like it's so
mm-hmm.
cool.
Yeah, I had a
Um,
buddy who lived in a boat,
oh,
and there's people who live
sick.
in boats and they live in the canals and
Yes.
there. Yeah. Isn't that
Yeah,
crazy?
they have a beautiful floating flower shop actually that they made on one of those old boats, and it just
Mm,
stays like on the harbor. But
that's
we
so
went down on
cute.
Queen's Day, and that's their like
Uh,
national holiday. So though for the first 3 days we were there, I think there was
mm,
like 2.5 million people in the city.
mm.
Dude, it was insane. There was so much garbage because you cannot find a garbage
Oh,
can in Amsterdam. Okay.
oh, really?
But then, like literally, because in Amsterdam, people don't carry their coffees around and shit. They sit down, they enjoy a coffee, and then they go about their day.
Oh, okay.
So
I love it.
when we woke up in the morning, we
Yeah,
like
yeah,
waded through 2 feet of trash, and it was like the earth opened up and swallowed it
yeah.
all because we got up in the morning and it was like
Hmm.
gone and completely beautiful and clean again. I was like, what the hell? Did
Hmm.
that
Hmm.
actually just happen?
Yeah, and why would you promote a culture where people sit down and drink a coffee from an actual cup? Because if you promote having a cup they can take with them, a disposable, which often isn't even recyclable, perhaps almost, excuse me, I don't want to misquote anything here. Point is, it's a product that needs to be produced, right? So hey, might as well cut down a few forests so we can supply people with these cups.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
that's why looking at the root cause of what we're doing to scoop the earth from the ground and sell it back to ourselves, basically. And
yeah,
there'll be nothing left under our feet.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
How's you said you were in the Navy, did you
Air
say?
Force.
Air Force.
Yeah.
How was that did that change your mental health at all, or did that like burden you with extra mental health, or did it help?
Yeah, well, it helped at first. It was really good for me to have that structure and
Right.
to get out of it. To me, I need the consequence, right? It's like, you need to do this, you're going to go to jail, buddy. Like, do it. So, and so then I'm all in. I'm all in. I'm like, I just do whatever they say and you'll be fine, kind of a thing. And sure, there's certainly snags along the way, and I've always considered myself to be, as I say, it's better to be lucky than to be smart. And I feel that for whatever reason, like we'd be lined up and the guy would come down, the TI, that's what we called training instructor in the Air Force is what they call a drill sergeant in the Army, I believe.
Right.
So we had a TI, and he'd say, you, and you, 3 guys right in front of me, and he would stop right before he got to me. This kind of stuff always happened to me, you know. I'm like, what, man, it's just my lucky day, man.
Oh my
Because then they'll bring
gosh.
you over here and ask you a million questions and, you know, rip you and whatever. They just got to do, that's their job, is to try to stress you out and stuff. But to me, boot camp was really fun, and it was funny because those guys are hilarious. The thing, and of course you really look up to them like, man, that'd be a cool job to have in the Air Force, and it's hard. It's really hard to be a TI. But I actually ended up getting fever, and I can't remember where they traced it back to, but I almost lost the flight I was in. I almost got recycled into another flight because I had to stay in the hospital and wait for the fever to go down, and they isolated me and everything. And then, it was the weekend though. So when I came back, the TI just saw me, shrugged, and we went back to it. You know, it was no big deal. So, yeah. So that way I didn't have to buy, cancel I already bought my mom's plane ticket and everything like that. So,
Oh my
that would have been a bummer. So, you don't want to have your parents want to come see you, and I was lucky enough to have some people come see me for that. But yeah, so that part of it was great. Made
I would
some.
die in boot camp. I'll just tell you, like, if someone screams at me like that, I'm gonna get kicked out on the first day because of the shit that's gonna come out of my mouth.
Oh my God. I mean, to me, like, I grew up, a lot of people were, like, yelled all the time. Like, my mother yelled all the time. My Uncle Lauren, I mean, I worked for him, and I lived, because I come from a home of domestic violence and drug abuse and other things like that, so I ended up having to go live with other family members and stuff and live in other states. So that was a big part of my life too, and that affected me, but
Yeah, of course.
but the thing is, I was always an A student, okay, and until I stopped caring. I just stopped caring because, I don't know, I felt bored in school, and I know now it's an industrial education, and there's the Chomsky quote I carry around with me, but something about how it's all an elaborate filter system to weed out any independent thinkers, because that's the one they're a threat to the institutions, and that it's ironic to be in a place where I'm in art school and I still feel that way. It doesn't feel any different to me than the indoctrination of a boot camp, which what I realized was everyone said to me, "Oh, I'm so sad that I don't want you to go away to the military and come back and not be yourself anymore because you'll be brainwashed." And I joked to him. I said, "Look, the brainwashing occurs long before that,
Yes.
And this is digging into Heidegger and deconstruction of worldview and the fact that even acknowledging or being able to realize that we have a worldview and the way we see a world in a certain way. I mean, I think that there's a serious anti-intellectualism that is rampant in the United States in terms of, well, it's like Mike Judge who made Beavis and Butthead. He said, did you ever see Idiocracy?
I want to say yes, but a long time ago.
Sure. So, well, there's a thing where if someone says, it comes from when Mike Judge was in high school or middle school or something, he would say something articulate, and then some guy would say, fag. And then so he made it so if anyone said anything smart in the movie, they would just say fag, as if that's something to say. And so it's downgrading anything that is right to reach for intellectualism, which is good for everybody. And it's not something that should be denied to people because a few folks want to feel, well, we all feel a little, I mean, shoot, reading stuff you don't understand, that's my whole life. Like, how can you possibly understand all of it? It's impossible. But that's no way to look at it. The way to look at it is you do the best you can, and we all do, and we should try to lift each other up. But my goodness, the tribalism, right? It's just, is it in our bones, in our DNA? I think so. But how do we harness those tools to make the world better? I mean, that's the only thing we can do, and what else can we do but try and continue to try and not lose hope? With the mental health stuff, for me, it was learning that I bombed my friend who lived in Yemen, as a matter of fact. And I won't say his name, but he knows who he is, and we made friends, and I learned about his culture, and he learned about mine, and he was one of the most peaceful men I ever met, and I hope to see him again. In a couple of years, I'll pass through there again. I think he's still there, because he said he couldn't go back, because it's a weird thing. It's a weird thing when my country's doing evil on him, right? And then, but then at the same time, like he's telling me, like if he goes to learn to meditate and stuff, he can't go back there because they'll kill him, you know. And they can't listen to music and all kinds of other stuff. So I don't know everything about it. All I know is I bombed him, okay? And he told me that, I mean, maybe it wasn't him at the exact time, but it was the time frame. And it doesn't really matter though. It's the point that it's happening, okay?
Yes. Yeah.
That we're bombing people. And he said he would go for his jogs every day. And he said sometimes when the bombs were dropping, he would just go jogging anyway because he didn't want it to stop him from living his life. And,
Right.
you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I remember learning about the drone pilots that got PTSD, and you know, I realized if guys looking at a computer screen in Colorado Springs can, I certainly can on an airfield in the middle of Iraq or Honduras or whatever. You know, like
My God, yes.
it's and so because there's this level of badasseriness where it's like, okay, did someone point a gun at you and shoot you? I mean, no one does that anymore. It's people in war use IEDs and all kinds of other methods. It's just we don't go to war like that. Most of the war is a cyber war. It's a mind war, you know. So in terms of sticks and stones, well, the sticks and stones have gotten so far beyond our reach, you know, in terms of blowing up the whole dang world, Jody, you know.
Yeah.
That's why it's like peace at any cost, because only profiteers want war, and we're just gonna, you know, we're gonna put ourselves right back there. And so for me, it was like all I knew is I had to walk 180 degrees in the other direction of whatever the fuck I was doing. You know what I mean?
Right.
And that's how I found Fresco, and because I'm like, what does the world need? The answer is sustainability. And Jacques Fresco's great, and he's a genius, but permaculture design is something anyone can pick up and use.
And let our our listeners know what permaculture is.
Oh boy, you sure you want to open that can of worms, Joey?
Just gonna take the lid off, but not all the way, okay?
Not all the way. Okay, let's keep it partially on. Yeah, I mean, so one of the I have a half of a course done on X, permaculture design course, and it's a 72-hour course, which is a standard certificate. It's free, you know. I'll accept voluntary contributions. Great. You want to throw me some money? Cool. It's more important that people actually use the stuff. And what I've learned is that in 10 years of doing permaculture design, which I learned at studying, I Googled sustainable living degree. Okay. And what came up was Maharishi University of Management. I'm like, what's a Maharishi? But I remembered, I'm like, I thought of the Beatles, and of course they went and saw Maharishi, and they wrote songs about him and stuff. And yes, he turned out to be a charlatan or whatever. Go figure. I mean, you know, the point is, it's a place where I met. It was people who are, to me, on the cutting edge of thinking and what is happening in the world, because they kind of end up there, and I'm not sure why. In terms of what they're thinking, like you'd be, at least when I was there, okay?
Right.
And some of the teachers are just like, it's cool, they have a block system, so you take one class at a time, one class per month. But you go Saturday from 10 to 12. That's the only thing. And it's really, I love that. It's really good for me because I'm diagnosed ADHD. Everyone who knows ADHD knows I'm ADHD. You know, my mom, and I was also diagnosed bipolar as well. When I told the doc finally, because I don't tell people, you know. I was the guy. I was the one who helps people. I'm the one people come to. I'm not the one who goes to people, you see.
I feel you so hard on that, my friend.
Yeah. And so I am incapable, and I'm trying not to be, okay? Because this is why hosting, instead of solving my problems, I'll like create an organization. Like, you know what I mean? Just create work for myself to make the world like, and this is chronic do-gooderism type stuff. And, you know, I got to read the book. Ellie keeps telling me about it, but there is a suspicion of do-gooderism, to do good. And I just feel like, I don't know, as a child I was naive about goodness. My mother taught me about right and wrong in a very black and white way. There's things you do and there's things you don't, and there's gray areas, but I don't know, the dream of mechanized farming and industrialization. We're going to feed the world. Well, guess what? Okay. The first thing is, no, you didn't. And the second thing is, what are you feeding them? Because I don't think it's good enough. Okay. Not even close.
Right.
And even the UN says small scale growing food, and the small scale meaning suburban yards, okay, is the answer to all the, as Jeff Lawton said, all the world's problems can be solved in a garden. That's a famous permaculture quote from Jeff Lawton. There you go. Jeff with a G. He's probably the most well-known. He basically took Mollison's lineage, let's say. Bill Mollison, co-creator of permaculture, also David Holmgren. Okay. It was basically a professor and a student. I believe he was a graduate student at the time. And I think it was Holmgren who actually, who wrote out the initial papers and then put them in a drawer somewhere. And I think Mollison took them out, and then ended up taking it seriously and then running with it and going around the world and teaching it. Okay. So one of the things we like to do when we do permaculture class is to go around the room and ask everyone to give their definition of what permaculture means. And one thing Bill said was he liked that it was hard to define. But one of my favorite definitions is some guy at a lecture saw him and came up to him after. There was only like 5 people there or something. And he told the story. And he said, I like what you've done. You've created a closet in which to hang all of human knowledge. Okay? So all of human knowledge, the answer is, what do we do? Or the question, what do we do? The answer, take all of human knowledge and apply it to the problem. That's it. You just go that direction. Okay? There's no downside to making the land rich with food and timber and making everyone rich with wonderful food, that no chemicals and stuff. They say it's not possible at a large scale, but that's because that all is going to change in terms of what scales we're doing if we do it right. And it's not impossible. And another Bill Mollison quote, the solutions are there and they're embarrassingly simple. Right?
Right.
So, yeah.
It's often the case in a lot of situations,
100%.
And we make everything a lot more complicated than it needs to be.
We're emotional beings, not logical ones.
Yes, absolutely.
Rock on. Yeah, it's trying to figure out how to how to deal with that raw emotion of people. And
Yes.
I think that is an art form, and that's why I stand out in my art classes, because I'm technically studying sculpture, which I did, like raised garden beds. I call them perma-sculptures. That's permaculture and sculpture, right? And I applied to Concordia with that. It's kind of a joke. I was like, hey, I have a couple years left of money because I've never trying to get a degree. So I'd say I go to school and learn something, right?
Right,
That's the
right.
problem, see. I'm really setting myself up for failure, Jody, you see, because I'm going to school to try to learn something. And that's not what you go to school for, okay? Trust me, I'm in those classes.
I know. I
They're
agree.
concerned with the grade. And if you can learn something, look, some people pour the books hard, and they do. But they're learning it in a specific way as a specialist usually, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And that's a mark of permaculture design, is that if people who are out there listening who are into being a polymath or a Renaissance man, if you want to do more than one thing, permaculture design is to me, and that's to me what I always looked up to, people like that, Da Vinci, right? The people who are polymaths who can do more than one thing, and because even if you're bad at it, it makes you better at things overall, because you have a more holistic understanding of systems, right? And so systems thinking is a big part of permaculture, but pattern design, applying, and that's a book, a pattern language, right? But we're literally using patterns such as a pond. Most people would, if I said draw a pond on a piece of paper, here's a pencil, draw a pond, they would draw a circle or an oval, right? Or something like that. But if we're trying to, most life is on the edge, right? If you look at a tree, a forest, for example, most of the biodiversity, different species of plants and animals are going to exist on the edge of that forest. Same with waterways. So if I want to maximize the edge of a pond, I wouldn't make a circle. I would make, like a starfish has 5 legs. Anyone can draw a starfish. But what if a starfish had 10 or 20 legs even, right? But imagine it was backwards, so the legs pointed in towards the middle of the pond. See? So
Right.
you up and down with your finger like that, where you're making triangles. That would be sharp edges. That would be the maximum amount of edge that you could put on a pond, and you would therefore maximize your diversity in the smallest space possible. So this principle applied over and over again. You can see quickly things can get out of control in the best possible way. So,
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
yeah,
That's like
the more
I'll have
water.
to contact you next year, and because I want to put a garden in the backyard and grow some stuff. And I don't have a green thumb, so
Hey, right on. We'll start collecting your mulch now then.
yes, yes, we
Yeah.
actually did. I told my roommate every time he mows the
Well, I'm
lawn.
talking about the leaves. You got leafy trees there?
Um, you know what? We're surrounded by trees, but not really
Mm-hmm.
leafy trees. I
Mm-hmm.
haven't seen much, but the leaves really haven't started to drop here yet either, which is kind of
Evergreens? A lot of
odd.
evergreens?
Yeah, evergreen, I think like firs.
Okay. Okay.
I got some of those, and then
So what I used to
there's
do is
some.
go. You have neighbors who put out leaves in paper bags on the side of the road for the city to take?
Yeah, yes, definitely.
Okay. Well, I can tell you that most of the perma sculptures I made are basically edible sculptures, and or anything above and beyond that was made with those. So you can literally, yeah, including the bag itself. That's called sheet
That's
mulching.
crazy.
That's when you put down ideally cardboard or brown paper from those bags, and then you just cover it in mulch. In this case, leaves. So you literally rip the bag open, and then just make it so you can't see the bag anymore, and the worms will come up and eat that lickety split. I mean, they love it,
Oh my
and
God, I didn't know that. That's so cool.
they love the glue and cardboard as well. And then it prevents things from growing, such as weeds that would compete with, well, quote unquote weeds. That's another conversation. We don't go too deep on that. Fuck it. But the link to mental health, you see, because what I learned was, and this is what happened with Purple People. It was just a space name I made. The third space I ever opened on X was called Purple People. And I had a friend who was a veteran as well, and he was making art. He was a Marine, Mr. Green, doing digital art. That's how I found X, etc. And we love spaces, so he'd send me a space DM. I'd send him one. We chase each other through spaces. And one day he said, "There's no spaces open to space." So I made a veterans mental health space. I think twice I did that. And I realized people might not come because it said veteran. They might feel not invited or something. But we like
Mhm.
mental health spaces specifically because you can go in there and everyone can get a mic and you can talk and you talk about deep stuff, right? That's how we looked at
Yes,
it.
yes.
And then we started to learn about Mental Health Collective and Paulina and Bipolar Recorder, right? Um, and there's like communities of communities out there, like somatic
Hmm.
healing community we know now. And so, but then I realized like a lot of folks, well, they want variety first of all, and the second thing is rumination is the number one symptom of if you got something going on with depression or mental health, and that means thinking about your problems. Okay, so
Hmm.
so it's, and I know people like this in my life who I've been around a lot who it becomes part of the illness, you see. It's psychological where they talk about it all the time and they're so into it and obsessed with it. If they just took all that energy and put it towards, right, uh, let's call it CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, or just like pattern resolving, making new
Hmm.
patterns, right? And just going in this direction, not the other direction, right? Which is, oh, I have so many problems, poor me. It's like, look, you're living now, okay? And so we realize that, what's really good for mental health other than having like what is a equivalent of like a talking circle or group therapy. There's different formats of it, okay? Peer support, largely. It's really good, and we love doing those spaces. But what we like to do even more, what's really good for mental health, is being involved with your community where you're laughing, having a good time, having coffee,
Yeah.
encouraging each other to drink water and eat healthy food and exercise and stretch and meditate and do yoga, all that good stuff, right? So that's why we created all these like different, creating experience. People come in and listen to music and clean the house together, and anything that's good for mental health, literally anything at all,
Yes.
you know.
Yes.
But really, art, mental health, and permaculture, and we always joke like, because literally for the first year, Jody, I was hosting mental health spaces for a year solid. I mean, because it was my way of hearing other people say, and I could just be an announcer, right? And I could be detached from it. I could just host the space
Mm-hmm.
really well and make it so other people can access it and get good at hosting and by practicing. And also because you end up becoming people's counselor too, which is a bad thing. And then they get mad when you don't jump in, right? Like you
Yes.
need to be there
Yeah.
for them in a certain whatever they define, you know.
Yeah.
And it's like, and so you have to create a layer of separation. So for example, when someone would say something, like they give this big speech and it's really heavy stuff, and I would just act like I didn't hear it and run the space. And what it would do is it would prompt other people to come up because they felt like someone needed to say something. That's the point. So I'm taking a hit in a sense because people are like, what, he doesn't even care. But it's like, number one, I'm trying to activate it's not my job to take on everyone's emotional labor, okay? What
Right.
I'm
Yeah.
doing is everything I can to make that space available, because when I hear other people say stuff, I'm like, thank God they said it because I can't do it. You know what I mean? I'm just like, thank
Yes,
God someone else is
absolutely.
going through what I'm going through, right?
Yes.
And
Yes. You
sometimes
got.
sometimes misery loves company.
Yes, absolutely. And like minds, right? Like minds are so important. Especially with people who've gone through trauma. Um,
Uh-huh,
you
100%.
know, it's just such a different mind than, quote, a healthy mind. So
Hmm.
to be around people and to listen to their journeys, it can be really encouraging too, right? Because you're like, oh man, am I ever going to get through this shit? And then you hear someone's story and you're like, okay, they
Exactly.
got through this,
Someone's
so
got it so much worse than
I
me.
can do it, right?
I know.
Right?
Well,
Yeah.
that's yeah, and fighting for some of our friends who, and that's the thing about people, like suicide is a touchy topic or whatever, but I mean, I was literally a suicide clown for 2 years. And so, yes, people say you can't make jokes about suicide. I said, really? Because I did it for 2 years as a job. Okay, so point is,
Well,
I was a clown for Andre Broussard. I was his personal clown, and he's like, it's a job I fell backwards into here because I am connected to the arts communities, and some guy who
right.
is connected to him who helped him, he's like a famous director from their culture here, and I ended up actually for the second year. I had an apartment because the first year was 3 days a week. I would go see him for a few hours and an extra too, and spend time with him. But then it ended up that I had an apartment right across from his place because he had fallen down once, and I found him, and it was like we need to redo this. We need to figure this
Right.
out because I can't. The stress of thinking that I might be too late. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Because
Mm-hmm.
and so then other than sleeping and showering and stuff, I was there, and I ate my meals there. I worked there. I started to do spaces because I needed mental health too because it was COVID, you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
that's when a lot of us met each other and came online and stuff because everyone's trapped and needs someone to talk to.
Mm-hmm.
Human voice, Jody.
Oh my God, so important, dude. Human connection is so important.
Oh my
Like,
goodness.
it just, it's something that, people are always like, oh, you have to heal alone. Okay, you have to do the work alone. You do not have to heal alone. There's a difference, you know? And,
100%. But guidance helps, right?
oh, absolutely.
Friendship
Absolutely.
helps. Just friendship. Just knowing that
Yes.
someone else cares, even a little
Yeah.
bit, and that we
Yeah.
need each other. You know what I mean? It's like,
Mhm.
look, we're all we've got. Okay, so what else do we? It's like curl up in a ball and die, or let's shake
Yeah.
it off and keep moving because the best thing to do is to keep moving, literally. You
Yes,
know? Yeah.
absolutely. You got to keep going forward, and even if it's a 0.5% a day of improvement, and expect setbacks too, because that's always going to happen because that's life. But a half percent a day better is it's huge in a year,
0.5% a day better. I love it.
right? Like I find that. As trauma people too, like where we carry these expectations that are
Hmm.
usually enormously high.
Hmm.
And, it's only this year that I've kind of realized those weren't my expectations of
Hmm.
myself. Those were expectations placed on me when I was a child.
Hmm.
And I've been carrying all this extra weight about it for so many years. And when I finally, dumped it off this year, it was a huge relief. Just now I can figure out what it is that I want to do, and how I want to think about things without these biased and negative tapes playing in my head.
For sure. Yeah, having that negative self-talk. And that's something that when a friend says, "Oh, I'm stupid," or whatever, you can say to a friend that you have an emotional healthy relationship with, which we have in the mental health communities. You can say, "No negative self-talk." You just say that. They say it,
Hmm.
you say, "No negative self-talk," and they'll say, "Oh, thanks." Right?
Yeah, yeah.
Or but then you can play a game and they say, "Oh, sorry," and they say, "Never,"
No. Well,
Well, because
Canadians,
in
we
boot
say
camp,
sorry for everything.
well, yeah, it's a Canadian thing too, but people in general, they'll say sorry too much. And I
Hmm.
think that because there's other ways to say it, right? Because in boot camp, whenever we would say sorry, they'd say, this is a trick. You never say sorry, right? Because they'll say, "I didn't ask for a character reference," right? That
Oh
was,
my God.
yeah, that was their comeback. And so it's a classic, right? It's the easiest one ever. So that is, it's a form of character reference in that way. And I think that's, to be sorry. And I think it's not something that, it's good to feel compassion, right? Or to feel, but not to genuinely feel sorry when you didn't do anything wrong, right?
Hmm.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. And I used to be one of those people, like, I'd start a text and I'd say, "Oh, sorry to bother you, but," and then I go
Hmm.
off my text and my therapist is like, "Why do you assume that you're bothering them?" Uh-huh. Good
Yeah,
question.
I guess I suppose I do that. I do that same thing. Like, I'll sit by myself or something, and people will come sit with me. They're like, "What are you doing?" I say, "I don't know. I don't want to bug any. I don't want to push my company on anyone, right?"
Right, right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
I feel that too.
but it harms the group. I mean, not harms, but okay, it's a self-esteem thing where I have to say to myself, "Okay, look, you can." In terms of social dynamics, which is something I spent a lot of time uh, working on and teaching people. I have to admit that I can make, and anyone can do this. This is what I love about anything approach. An artist, I've seen artists who make really cool things, but I always admired making things that you could show other people that they could make too, that it's accessible.
Right.
In my case, growing edible sculptures, having, for example, an apple tree with more than one type of apple on it. Have you ever had one of those?
No, but that sounds really cool.
How about having one branch that's a Red Delicious and one branch that's a Granny Smith? How about that?
Yeah.
Is it possible?
I don't know. I think it would be, no?
Not well. Not only is it possible, but you can do a different apple on every branch if you want. Yeah, and it's the same with stone fruit. In fact, because apples are not true to seed, that means if you take an apple seed from an apple, it will become a crab apple, most likely, right? It's a genetic crapshoot.
Oh,
Uh,
okay.
but but sometimes you come up with a brand new awesome variety. Hey, you bite into it, it smells like roses. Why is this
Right,
not the
right.
hot selling apple? Well, because everyone expects red, yellow, and green. Like that's what they want.
Yeah,
That's what
yeah.
sells. I know people they only eat green apples, but every green apple comes from the same tree, Granny Smith, which is an apple from Florida, right? So that it's all cloned, you see.
Right, okay.
And so we're much better off creating new varieties, which are infinite. By the time and that's why I tell people you can make your own variety and name it after yourself, and I'll use their last name and say, and they'll laugh. And I'll say, I'm serious. What about Peterson's pawpaw? You know what a pawpaw is? That's good for
No.
mental health. I have a pawpaw date with a friend I might have missed. Not my fault. I did my best. Okay, they're out of town. But there's a pawpaw tree here on the island of Montreal. Most people do not know what a pawpaw is, and they do not know that they could grow in Canada either, but they can. Okay, and I have proof because I can walk to one right now. It's on the island of Montreal. A pawpaw is native to North America, and it's a fruit that, like many, does not ship well because it's smushy, right?
Okay.
But yeah, but it's like a tropical fruit that grows in North America, from Texas to Montreal. So it's native to North America, and it's like a custard mango. There's many different flavors, but Peterson sells them at a premium because they are premium varieties. So, and they're beautiful little fruits too. They're really cool to look at, and
I'll
yeah,
have to
there's
look at them.
yeah, get your hands on some pawpaws. But I think just you know, it's like what you're saying before. We like to call ourselves Island of Misfit Toys, and sometimes our big hearts have ambitions that we can't reach ourselves because we're just mental healthy misfit toys. Like
Yeah.
we right, like we're just getting along the best we can, and it's fun to dream and imagine and play games and stuff. But sometimes our ambitions are kind of like beyond what we can actually reach, and that's okay, right? Because and I think understanding what having reasonable expectations, being able to manage your expectations about what's realistic, right? But then still being able to dream out to the point of, it's like when you do a permaculture design, like you want to do your house, right? You want to do a garden design. You think, okay, first I'm going to design, I got a piece of paper and a pencil, right? And then you're going to make, and that's it. That's all you really need. You got to know where the sun rises and sets, and that's pretty much it. And then you put in your stuff, right? Tallest in the back, shortest in the front, and you got to know look at the companion plant chart, make sure that you're pairing things correctly, and this kind of stuff. But you do a design, you say, okay, if I had unlimited money, my wildest dreams come true, here's the design, right? I'll do anything I want. Let's say that. Okay, now once that's done, I'm going to do a design where it's like $0, okay? I have stuff for to buy the plants or whatever, but basically I'm literally at this point foraging plants nearby to grow in this yard until they grow like this and whatever, right? Until you can get your mulch up, and it depends on what kind of system you want. But one of the hallmarks and one of my favorite concepts of permaculture is what's called a food forest. And that's kind of the thought that Bill Mollison had at the same time as David Holmgren. They kind of had the same thought at the same time, which is why not model agriculture after a forest, because a forest doesn't need to be watered. It's a self-replicating system. It just goes and goes until you remove it,
Right. Yeah.
And so why not layer, if the average forest has 7 layers and any human being can recognize that, you don't have to understand biology or ecology or nothing. And it's also gardening, dealing with plants, being in nature like this, eating because no one ever talks nutrition and mental health, right? Ever. It's always like kind of a self-help type stuff, right? My God. And nutrition is never talked about in society in general, certainly not in mental health. It's like, take these pills and eat, Twinkies or whatever, and yeah, you'll be fine. Come on,
I know, right?
That stinks, So this is
It's
why
so true.
it's the basis of good mental health is nutrition, and this is where it all comes from. So to me, there's no stronger connection than this, and a toolkit of how to get there. And so some people, they're not in a place where they can take part in the adventure. But they can listen while we do, and they can cheer us on and share photos and videos on the thing. So it's a way you add a digital layer to the community, Jody, because I didn't know anything about digital communities. I was building an actual, nothing against digital, they're great, and so many people can access them. But I was doing stuff like on the ground where you're getting real people with buildings and stuff and growing food and businesses or whatever you can do. And that's a whole nother thing, to get along with people in that way where you're committed and you got skin in the game and
Yes.
all that kind of stuff. So at the end of the day, I felt like one guy I met when he was getting out of the Air Force. He said, I'm going to be the one, he said, I'm going to be anything. He said, what are you going to go be? He said, I'm going to be anything but in charge, because,
Yeah.
it's like the people the people who want to be in charge are the people you don't want in charge. That's a fundamental fluke of the society,
That
right?
is so true.
Good people get chased out of politics because, who needs the trouble to deal with vipers and whatnot when you can just, live your life and not get involved. Well, that's when good men do nothing. Guess what happens? So
Yeah. Yes. That's so true. It's so dangerous. And that goes with mental health too. It's just not being we have to be aware of what's in our world and control what's in our direct circle, but we need to be aware of how our circle affects other people's circle too, right?
100%. We
So
all affect each other.
yes, absolutely.
And we it's like we don't realize that until we see this fire from a forest. You know, that smoke goes across international borders, believe it or not. Like, you know
Yeah,
what I mean? It
absolutely.
affects everyone. I remember an old meme about a farmer who grew corn, and he would share his seed with everyone. He had prize, all his neighbors, right? Prize winning corn. And they said, why would you give away the secret? He said, because if my neighbors grow corn, my corn is better too. Then their corn is better. Then everyone's corn is better. It makes it better for
Right.
everyone. Stop trying to
Yes.
steal the secret for yourself so you can live on top of everyone else. And and
Yes.
and,
Yeah.
and perhaps, but is that the truest ambition of everyone that we can't admit? Because every revolution in history has shown that. I think is to say that as soon as there's basically the super rich people and everyone else, but there's some who are able to have some. They're able to basically have enough money to be above the horde, right?
Yeah.
And so it's like, they basically would rather keep their stuff, right?
Hmm.
They work to get the stuff and they don't want to give it up because, they're fine with the rich people or the rich powerful people being in charge because as long as they can live above everyone else, they're fine too, right? But
Yeah.
there's a lot of people who just get swept by the wayside, unfortunately.
Yeah, absolutely. And it baffles me because like I was talking to someone the other day just about mental health professionals in general,
Hmm.
and most of them, are good at what they do, but a great percentage of them are book taught,
Mm, yeah.
and they can approach things from that aspect. Whereas a peer support person who may not have that book knowledge or
Hmm.
those letters behind their name, but
Hmm.
has life experience. And to me,
Hmm.
those are the greater connections that I can always make. Is
100%.
people who have like true life experience, because like I've been through so much trauma, so I can now feel, and without taking your trauma on, I can feel where you are at in your journey, and then I can come meet you there instead of expecting you to be where I am on my journey.
Hey, right on. Yeah, I
Yeah.
remember. Yeah, it makes me think of this pilot program they had in Africa where they had I think people in their 20s or younger people who had mental health symptoms they had a program where they'd have old grannies sit on the benches and they have a sign or something that says, you can come talk to me, sit on the bench and we'll talk, and that's it. Their symptoms are gone. So. And this is why I would hang out because I used to volunteer a lot in the Air Force, the soup kitchen, the Humane Society, stuff like that. But one that I didn't get to do as much, I would like to do more, which is to just talk to old people, hang out and do puzzles with them and stuff. And
Yeah.
I think old people, there's no one who's more interesting to listen to than an old person in terms of things. I mean, anyone who's been around a while, the longer they've been around, the more they know.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
and you never quite know, right? They all become philosophers in their own way.
Yeah, I know, right? The over
And
80 club.
that's what I'm saying. I just love it when we get like really ancient people on this platform. They're few and far between. There should be more, but it's interesting to me. I love that because just the stories you can hear and the wisdom and it's something that we forget about. And this comes back to design as well. When I'm at Fresco, learning about how design can solve problems in society. A great example is that we make this society so that it's ableist. We worship and look up to people who are able-bodied, right? They can jump and run and do sports and stuff.
Right.
But if you can't, it's like, okay, like good luck, right? Because
Yeah,
right.
sorry you fell between the cracks in the sidewalk.
Yeah, good luck. Yeah, exactly. And the society is not made accessible for people, and it cries out. It's the kind of thing that cries out for us to do because what is it? How does that make us look as people that don't have wheelchair access and all kinds of basic stuff? You see a New York subway a guy, I saw him spill over from in a wheelchair trying to get on and off or whatever it was, and I remember a small documentary where some guy tried to travel around, I think for a week or something with a wheelchair and found it nearly impossible. And even when I use my clown cart, the few times I'm And I still use a cart in the city because I love it. Ever since I saw babushka ladies in New York using those little grocery carts, I was like, oh my gosh, you can just live in the city and have no car and have a cart. This is my life. I want to be an old lady, right? But I use them for clowning in the city too. And I realized like there's a lot of places where if the escalator's down, there's no elevator. There's not even an elevator in a subway station. They're putting them in, but the point was they were designed without it. It's like, okay, if you can walk, great. If not, good luck. Like,
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, hire someone to carry you on a litter like a king. Then you can join us.
Exactly. That's
And
exactly.
some of the intentional communities I visited were Camp Hill, and that's one of the largest networks of intentional communities. Anyone listening, ic.org, you can find the map of the whole world of communities. But they had a special needs life-sharing community, and you find that there are people who are, we find out actually about special needs and what that actually means and how everyone has their own special needs. It's just that some have different ones than others. And sometimes they can't, there are people who can't brush their teeth. You know what I mean? Stuff like that. They can maybe take out the compost and wipe the table, but the rest of the time they're hanging out and watching movies and do whatever activities are going on, Try to help them take part in the work if they can, even if it's just to hang out while you do it. But it's amazing because they don't say, hey, this is John and he has such and such thing. They just say, this is John. And whatever John can do, you learn how to work within the limitations of what John can do, and it works just fine. And what you realize is that when you treat people with basic dignity and respect, it's amazing what they can do. And that they bring so much joy in their very special, unique way that no one else ever could. Like, especially like humor. And this one guy, I won't say his name because, it's recorded and stuff, but I mean, I think of the laughs I've had with this person and the little games we would play, little noises we'd make where we pretend like he'd go, like he'd lean over and put his hand over his mouth and go like he's on a walkie-talkie and talk to me like that. So every time he'd make the noise and then he'd say, hey, James, blah, 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 this and that. And then I'd say, hey, and I'd do it back at him over and over again. That was, stuff like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So as a clown, like as a professional clown, my stuff goes really far in those environments if you can guess, right? So
yeah, absolutely. It's awesome. It's a gift to be able to, it's a gift to us and a gift that we can give,
100%. Yeah, you ever see Monsters, Inc.?
Yes, yeah.
They found, spoiler alert, anyone listening, turn it off now or skip forward if you don't want to know what happens at the end of Monsters, Inc., because here's what happens at 1504 New York City time, is that they find out that the energy from a child's laughter is way more powerful than their fear, than their screams or whatever, right?
Yeah.
So when they're happy, the energy is so powerful. So when you can make people laugh, but that's one thing. But because I tried stand-up for a bit when I was clowning for Andre, as a form of Andre Broussard, that's his name. He was the one who was known most for directing the majority of Michel Tremblay's plays. And yes, he hated the fact that every time they mentioned his name, they mentioned Michel, because of ego stuff. But he had his own career too. He directed the National Theater School. He did a lot of cool stuff, right? And they continued to make movies together and do all kinds of stuff together. They were a dynamic duo forever. But I was, oh my God. In fact, what is the date today? Oh my goodness. It's the 9th. Yeah, he died in the 11th, so 2 days, and that'll be 2 days from now. But I was planning on doing a clown walk there, and I suppose I will, it looks like I'm going to be going back stateside again, so instead. But yeah, he taught me the presence of clown, you see. Fancy theater stuff. The guy I learned from, Tom Foote, he had his own TV show years ago. He was actually also a Flint native, as I am, Flint, Michigan. Blue-collar clown, right? Air Force veteran as well, just like me. And Tom, I don't say his real name, but Tom Foote was his clown name. And he hates me now because I had to fire him, unfortunately, which is the thing I thought I'd never say. But, he said some things to people and wouldn't apologize, so there's really not much I could do. And so, that's the pettiness of the clown archetype, so I understand. I'm the same, right? You have to be able to admit, and that's part of that work, right, is learning about your shadow self and And that's why using archetypes and characters is really useful. Just like using a puppet on your hand is useful to say this and that, or when you're making jokes or something, because it's the puppet saying it, it's not you, you see.
Right. Yes.
So, and it helps you explore these realms a little better. And I find that in the scenography class with the character development I mentioned earlier, where, you know, when you create a character from scratch, I mean, you can just make up anything you want, you know?
Yes. That's
So
what I
any
love about
fantasy,
writing.
oh yeah, you write?
Yeah, man.
You write like scripts and
I
stuff?
No, I haven't done scripts yet. I do a lot of blogging, and I'm in a couple of
Oh,
anthology books, just like sharing a little bit of my story. Um, but basically, like
anthology
what?
books.
Yeah, so like just like books with like 15 or 20 women's stories in there. Um,
Oh, well, where do you get the
and
stories?
from the ladies who participate. It's all like personal. So I told a little bit about like my suicide journey
Oh,
and my childhood.
wow.
Um, but
Phew.
the pinned
Wow.
tweet on my page,
Mhm.
um, it
Mhm.
I wrote it one night. I was having a really dark time. I got off a
Mhm.
crisis line,
Mhm.
and I was furious with, all the things they had
Mhm.
said to me. So I just sat down
Mhm.
and I was like, what do I want to hear when I'm in this state of mind? So I just
Sure.
wrote this blog, and dude, it
Nice.
like took off like viral. It's got
Oh, I
like
heard that's the thing that
three,
went viral.
yeah,
Yes.
man. Yeah,
Okay.
it's got like millions of hits, and it's in
Ellie told me.
languages, it's in schools and shit.
That's
And
awesome.
I continually, I wrote that in 2016, and to this
Mhm.
day, I get emails from people, and I've like literally responded
Mm.
to every single one. There's probably about 5,000 in my inbox.
Wow.
And so what I
It's
want to
incredible.
do is I want to take the identifying information out, and I want to
Mhm.
make a book. Do you remember years ago there was a thing
Oh.
called Postcards from Around the World? I want to do it like that's basically just
Oh, I never heard
sharing
that one.
people's journeys and stories.
I like that.
Um,
No, that's really
you
nice. You
know,
know, to be honest with you, Jody, so one thing I do, it's the same with a movie, is that I don't want to see the previews. I never clicked on your link. I want to go in blind. And same with
okay,
knowing you as a person. I like to
yeah,
try to take people as they are as much as possible, right? And
yes,
not
yeah, I
research them
love
at
that.
all. You know what I
I
mean?
love that. Yeah,
Yeah, because I just find it's a cleaner experience because we're all biased, right?
yes,
So it's like the
absolutely.
more I know, because when people show up, they show up, they're trying their best. You know what I mean? They're trying to get
Yeah,
along. They,
yeah.
you know, and it's hard. It's harder for some than others, and I don't know. We can just do a lot together. I feel like there's something there in the humanness, the human experience of mental health. It's like if you've never been suicidal, you might not have lived a life, right?
Right,
So,
yeah, yeah, exactly. Or you just wear a mask through your whole life, right?
well, I think we all do, right? We have different roles we play, different masks we show for different things. And
Yeah.
when does the mask truly come off? Does it ever? You know, it's Carl Jung had said that his patients, well, he mentioned that, you know, no matter how much someone would tell him, that they'd always, or a lot of them would have a moment where they would say, you know what, that's it, I'm not going to tell you anymore. Like they would keep more inside secret. You know, there's the
Right.
depths of the soul of a person, you know, and the kind of things that go through our heads and our hearts. It's like, you know, it's not exactly the kind of stuff that you want to go around letting everyone know, right? It's stuff you're not
Hmm.
necessarily proud of. And it's a hard thing to admit or even talk about because most of us want to be seen as good people. And so this is why I admire people like Henry Miller so much, like because he told the truth, even when it was, you know, ugly,
Yeah, absolutely.
especially
Like
when it's
my
ugly.
my blog is very raw,
Okay.
raw and very open. Um, I don't write from, I don't write if I'm not emotionally connected because it just
Mm-hmm.
comes out like a blog. I like
Mm-hmm.
to, you know, I write in a manner somehow that can connect with an 8-year-old or a 90-year-old. And
Mm.
I think that's just,
I love it.
just the way that I am naturally when I write.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been a blessing because like I've met so many people through sending me
Mm-hmm.
emails of just thank you, and then other people just like spilling their life story. And it took me so long not to like be like, oh my God, I have to take this problem on, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's not my problem to take on, but if I can hold space for you, I certainly
Mm-hmm.
will, you know.
Oh, I love that. I love the idea of accessibility. I mean, many have criticized, like, let's say the book The Alchemist, and I have too. It's over, childlike or whatever. I mean, but look, I mean, when you're talking about trying to, are we trying to speak down to people, or are we just trying to speak with people, right? Are we trying to be
Yes.
seek to understand others and that they understand us truly, right? Or are we trying to just say that we know better than them and they should do what we say, right? There's a petty tyrant waiting around every corner, and that's part of my role as a jester archetype is to be able to point that out. Like, there's people every day, they think they're in charge and they're not, and they're trying to lord over other people. We're territorial apes, right, in us. But I wrote here on my board BDMX. It reminded me of this when you said that. Because DMX, they did a thing where they compared hip-hop lyrics to Shakespeare, okay? And based on unique word usage. And Wu-Tang Clan was up top as a clan, and I think that that's really telling because it shows how good these guys were, and especially because they collaborated in a very deep and intimate way, right? They were close, so they get good together. Cool Keith's up there too, but guess what? On the other side of the spectrum, like the simplest, all by himself almost, like the most simple words anyone can understand, it's DMX, right? And I was watching this video of the other rappers who were talking about how painful it was to go on tour with him because he would just absolutely, the crowd loved him so much. And of course, as performers, it's like painful. It's like, how are you going to follow this guy? He's just killing it.
Yeah.
But I put here, BDMX, win with execution and authenticity, undeniable. Meaning, it doesn't matter if there's 10 people or 10,000, And I think that's the truth with writing, too. Unless you're thinking about audience. Now, in terms of your audience, like, who are you thinking of specifically? Like, more than one? Or how do you feel about, like, who your audience is?
I really don't. That's the thing I think that connects me with such a wide audience is that I don't target an audience.
Mm-hmm,
I just
mm-hmm,
write raw and real. And, I discuss
mm-hmm,
things that people don't want to,
mm-hmm,
hear, but at the same time they do want to hear because they wouldn't read it, right?
mm-hmm,
So with all the stuff that I've been through, a lot of people look at me like a survival story. And I have to remind people, like, yes, I survived, but I am
mm-hmm,
still healing. Regardless of that I host a
mm-hmm,
space for healing, that's
mm-hmm,
because I can hold space for you.
mm-hmm,
And I'm not ever going to look down on anybody because, like, I've been the person who's been looked down on for, decades of my life.
mm-hmm,
So to me, my willingness to help is just because I feel like I have all this information in my head because I've been over therapy and because I've read so many
mm-hmm,
books, and I'm not ever going to say to someone, do this will work. But I will open up my toolbox and say, you know what? I have 100 skills in here. Let's try this. And if this doesn't work for you, come back to me and we
mm-hmm.
can find something that actually works for you specifically.
I love it. Workshopping it.
Right? Because it's just,
Workshopping it.
yeah, and it's just I never thought I'd host a space. Christ, I didn't even go into a space till maybe like 8 months ago. Like I was too like anxious about stuff. And
Okay.
then you know,
Well,
and
if
now
you're a
I'm
writer, it's a great
offering.
place to be.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
great writers are great speakers and vice versa, I feel, right?
I
It's just
think
that some
you
do
lack
one
the
more than the
confidence.
other, though, right?
Yes, yes.
I speak more than I write, and I should try to reverse it a little bit. And I think you're kind of the opposite. Maybe that's why maybe we made friends.
Yeah,
You're
absolutely.
Yeah, in fact, because the platform favors text for sure. Even though spaces are one of the best ways to grow as well, but I mean, there's no doubt that text. I mean, that's what it's all about, right? Posting
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
replying, especially. But that I don't know. For me, I just every platform wants you to stay on the platform, right? So that means have a conversation with someone that you keep coming back to, you keep using the platform, in a thread.
Yes.
And I'm not really interested in arguing with people. You know what I mean? Like as a form of
Yes. Oh my God,
entertainment.
there's so many argumentative people.
I
Like
mean,
arguing about the weather or arguing about
sure, yeah,
anything, the leaf on the ground. It's just like,
sure,
God,
exactly,
man.
yeah, yeah. Well, that's why we like to say the sky is purple or whatever else. It's like, look, anything is true, I guess. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
like, what is real? And you can hardly blame people. This is why, one of our guilds, one of our purple guilds is a group that deals with flat Earth. Like it's called Bat Squatch Gang, right? they're opposed to conspiracy theories and flat Earth and other things like that. Grifting, right? Especially the grifters. It's like if someone believes in flat Earth for a religious reason, so what? You know what I mean? It's like people can believe whatever they want. It doesn't make it true. Everyone has their own beliefs, so what? But if someone is actively trying to, sell T-shirts or like make a living off of promoting ignorance in the world, I mean that should be ridiculed, right?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
It should be ridiculed, and then also to make friends with the guys who, in a lot of cases, Jody, I mean, and I know it sounds like a big leap to make, but it's not. Believe it or not, and people are like, what, really? Yes. I mean, you can't watch Flat Earth community. That it's grown a lot, and you can't, even upon a cursory examination, notice how interlinked it is with Nazi ideology. I mean, they really love Hitler. I'm not kidding. It's like a whole thing. A lot of those belief systems prop up a lot of these communities. And what I found is these dens of hate where you have kids who are 20 years old looking up to guys who are doing salutes and stuff, who are straight up doing, Hail Hitler, and these are guys who need real friends, they need mentors, and what they're getting instead is someone who's just like, hey, well, here's another guy who's going to buy my T-shirt, so I'll just, Hail Hitler and all this stuff. So to me, this was not everyone deals with their problems the same way. So that's when we created that guild. It was like, what's good for mental health sometimes, like being a superhero. That's how we feel. Like we're Bat Squatch, right? It's a bunch of dudes who want to be Batman, and with science and reason and logic and yet they end up sometimes, a lot of them, where it's like the old argument, or not perhaps the new argument, that atheism is the new fundamentalism. The idea that people are being just as dogmatic about their belief that as a belief system and saying that they know the truth and shoving it down people's throat. I think it's really important that everyone has their own right to think what they want, right?
Yes, yeah.
And
if if you have a belief, that's great, and if you want to share it with like-minded believers, that's great too. But don't knock on my door.
Right. The self-righteousness.
You want me to buy and a bunch of self-righteousness. I can't deal with it, right?
I know the truth. Join my club. I know the truth. Really? Yeah. You're the magical one? Come on.
Yes, exactly.
This is why I talk about cults so much, because I don't see a difference. I do not. That's right. A tribe, a clan, a guild. We call it flock, school, or guild, right? Flock of birds, school of fish, guild of plants. And it's the same way the kid goes to summer camp. You make a group name, right? And you shout it out. And you make a song. Yeah. Like in my cousin's diabetes camp, this kind of thing. But it's the same way we would travel when we were new in the Air Force. You form a group and you travel together. You have battle buddy or a wingman or a shipmate or whatever, right? Strength in numbers. And having your own fervor or sense of identity, group identity, so that way you don't get sucked in by actual harmful people, that they do exist. I mean, Dr. David C. Lane, I interviewed him on the platform. He wrote Exposing Cults, and he's a professor of new religions in California. This guy publishes more books than I thought was possible. I think he's like reviving texts that people forgot about every kind of obscure cult or religion you can possibly think of. And it's becoming actually, like at the conferences and stuff, where it's, because this is a guy who has a pretty even hand. Like he's on one hand appreciating the aspects of spirituality that make life better, like eating healthy and doing yoga and like believing in goodness and this kind of things, and what those communities can provide. At the same time, examining with a critical eye, right? Because of the abuses that take place, right? It's like, I know the truth, so therefore I can do whatever I want. No, buddy, you can't, okay? And that's why sunlight sanitizes everything, Jody. You know what I mean? You just put it where everyone can see, and let the community decide for themselves,
Yep, absolutely.
Because things done in secret are never good, and I think that this is something we're seeing with the world. I mean, the world itself affects our mental health in such a way where it's like, what end is up anymore? The breakthroughs we're having all the time, the technology we have, access to information. You can hardly blame people who think the Earth is flat, because who can tell what's real anymore? We have deep fake video, right. AI videos of politicians saying God knows what. I mean, the world is seen to have gone topsy-turvy. So, anything that's on the ground, literally planting food, is really good for my mental health. Literally to have your hands in the soil, to the point where you're getting microabrasion cuts on your hands and absorbing those nutrients right into your bloodstream, y'all, if you're listening. I mean, it is really good for you. Read about it. Mental health.
That's awesome. Awesome, man. Yeah, you're just like a wealth of knowledge. So, I'd like to, if you have time in a month or 6 weeks or so, we'll set up another podcast because
Hey, cool.
I really enjoyed this and I learned a lot.
It was cool to get to
So,
know you better.
yeah, of course, man. We'll continue that for sure. Um, like it's so cool, like a clown. Like I've never met a clown, right? It's so cool, right? And you have a great laugh too. So
Hey, thank you. I
it's awesome.
tried to be the, well, I'll give you the clown laugh. Ho, ho, hey. That's the clown gibberish. Bye-bye, y'all. Thanks for
Oh
listening.
my God, that's crazy. All right, my friend. Thank you again.
Peace and love. Thanks, Dorian.
And we'll talk soon.
Talk soon. See you on the platform.
Okay, take care.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Mental Health Raw and Open podcast with your host, Jody Betty. If you enjoyed today's show, please give it a like and don't forget to smash that subscribe button. And if you appreciate the work I do, why not buy me a coffee? Details in the show notes. Today's episode was recorded and edited by Dorian Kent and produced by Jody Betty and Dorian Kent. This has been a Raw and Open production.